What's up, everyone? This is Trendkill Toys, and today I got two figures to review in one video. I got the Bring Arts Aerith and the Bring Arts Sephiroth, and these are from the Final Fantasy VII Square Enix figure line. I'm reviewing both in one video because I don't have that much to say about the Aerith figure. I have more to say about the Sephiroth figure, so in order to balance out the video, I'll just do both of them in one video. Before I get into the figures, I want to quickly show off the boxes for each of them. So here's the box for Aerith. So like I always say, these boxes are really clean looking. They look nice, and they look pretty cool when you display them together. So that's cool. Then the box for Sephiroth. It's really disappointing that the figure doesn't come with this backdrop here to recreate this scene here. But with all that out of the way, I'll get into the figures, and I'm going to start with Aerith. The sculpt and the paint is pretty nice. You got some shading where it needs to be, and the paint isn't like rubbing off or flaking off or anything. So the paintwork is really good, and the way that the figure looks just standing there is really good, and that's the best it's going to look because the articulation isn't that great, and especially for the price. These are each like around $90 or sometimes even more depending on where you buy it. If you get it from overseas, it's going to be around $90. And I don't want to repeat what everyone says. Everyone always says that these figures are not worth the price. But it is frustrating because this is the only way you can get like new, updated Final Fantasy VII figures. So it's really a shame that they're not really putting as much effort as they could have. And for the accessories, she has her staff, which looks good. It's pretty much what you'd expect, and it does separate so that you can fit it into her hand, so that's nice. Then she does have a few different hands. She's got her clasped hands, gripping hands for her weapon, two kind of closed hands, and then two relaxed hands. And she has one alternate face, which is her praying face. We'll get into the articulation. It looks fine, like when she's looking straight forward or left and right, but when she looks up, it really exposes the joint there, so it pops off kind of easily. So it's just oddly constructed, and it just looks weird. You do get kind of a decent amount of articulation, tilting and forward and back, and then turning left and right. And her hair also articulates in various ways, and then her hair accessory also rotates on that joint. The shoulders, they can get horizontal, and you kind of have to shift the shoulder joint down just to get to make extra room to make the shoulder able to move that far. Tiny bit of forward and back motion, not really any forward actually, just mostly back. And then a swivel at the bicep, single elbow for the wrist. It is a hinge, then you can swivel on the hinge and then hinge on the other axis. Moving on to the torso, she does not bend forward at all, kind of reminiscent of Marvel Legends. She does go back a tiny bit, not a whole lot, but really there's nothing moving forward. Left and right, a tiny bit, not really that much, but it is there. And then of course you can swivel on that. Then the legs are obviously greatly hindered because of the dress, so can't really expect to do too much. But she can kind of, move her legs that far, and then move them back, and then move them out that far. Knees, double knees, but again, you can't really use them because the dress gets in the way. Would have been awesome if the dress was a cloth. Her boots, no boot swivel, but you do get ankle articulation that hinges, and then it swivels. Toe articulation, which is not useful. Can't really see myself using this articulation. She stands fine without using that, and the ankles actually allow for a decent amount of range, so you can get different kinds of poses without needing to use the toe articulations. Another recurring problem with these figures is that the legs or the arms pop off. So on mine specifically, the leg is very easily removable. Sometimes when I'm moving the leg around, it'll come off randomly. Like where the leg attaches to is just not tight enough, and I think that goes for most of the figures in this line. They are reissuing Cloud and Tifa, and I do have both of those on pre-order, which is why I don't have Cloud or Tifa yet. They are reissuing those, and I think they're going to fix those issues. I think so. They haven't released like an official statement. They don't really do that. I think they're going to fix them. And here's what she looks like with her praying face and praying hands. That looks really cool, pretty accurate to the original game. And that's probably the best feature of these figures, that they look really close. The original artwork for the Final Fantasy VII game. So if you're a fan of that original artwork, this is the way to go. And it's really the only way that you can get Final Fantasy VII figures that look like that original artwork. All right, now we'll take a look at Sephiroth. Starting off with the sculpt and the paint and all the detail. It looks really good. You got the wrinkles in the bottom of his jacket, the wrinkles on his sleeves. Everything looks good. It looks accurate. And the color of his coat is not exactly black. It might look black on camera, but it does have kind of like a purplish hue to it, kind of like a brownish purplish kind of color thrown on top of the black. So that's kind of an interesting choice. I don't remember exactly what color it was in the original artwork. I think it was black, like just a straight up solid black. I could be wrong. And then you got his straps, his belt underneath his jacket, his shoulder pads, his hair is also nicely shaded. He doesn't have an alternate hairpiece. There's really only one pose that he looks good in, which is the pose on the box, the pose of that original artwork, where he's kind of standing there with his hair blowing to the side. He's holding a sword behind him. Paint-wise, quality-wise, everything looks good. Everything's there. It's not a sloppy paint job or anything. He does come with a lot more hands than Aerith does. So he has 2 of these open hands, 2 fists, and then 2 sets of open hands for some reason. I'm not exactly sure why. So this hand he's kind of holding his sword at an angle. The other hand is a little bit more straight. So he would hold his sword straight up and down. This one's for holding it at an angle. They are a tiny bit different, but not really that different. I don't know why they needed to include that many sword holding hands. And then he does have his giant sword, but this is also nicely detailed. You see the wrap on the handle is blue. And you have gray underneath that and the gold on the pommel and the hilt. 2 different colors on the sword as well. On the edge of the blade, it's a lighter silver. And then on the rest of the blade, it's a darker gray. The articulation is kind of the same thing with Aerith. He does look down, looks up a little bit. Not really a whole lot of tilt. There is some there. He also has neck articulation. So all of that combined, he can look a little bit more down and then a little bit left to right. And then of course it swivels, but then his hair is going to crash into the shoulder pad, so it can't really go full 360. And then the head does come off pretty easily. It's been kind of annoying dealing with that, but that's just kind of how it is with these figures. So the shoulder pads do move. He's got 2 sections to it. It's kind of loose, like sometimes it falls down. I think this one's worse, but once you move the arm, it'll stay up with the arm, so it's not really a problem. But it is kind of loose, and it does seem like it would be really easy to break, so you got to watch out for that. So the shoulder joint, it feels kind of restricted in there for some reason. Like I can't shift it up. So his arm goes out that far. It should go up more, but I just can't get the shoulder ball joint to shift up so I can get more, clearance from that joint. Or not shift up. Like I should be able to shift it down more to get more clearance, to be able to move it to a more like horizontal position. It just doesn't move. Like it doesn't cooperate. There's some kind of stuck in there or something. It's just not moving the way that it should. This is also a separate cap right here that the shoulder pads are attached to. Bicep swivel, a little bit loose. Oh, his hands also come off a lot. It's another problem that I have with this figure. Single jointed elbows, pretty nice, gets you a pretty deep range there, and the elbow doesn't look too bad. And then with the wrists, same thing as always. They hinge, then you can swivel them and hinge them on the other axis. Waist articulation, he has an upper torso, moves back that far, moves forward. Well, that's kind of good to know, because then you can make like a shirtless Sephiroth custom. All right, so it did take kind of a while to get that back on. His legs are falling off and his hands are falling off, so it was really annoying. Don't really get that much range out of that, but it does swivel. Does go forward and back, tiny bit, not really that much forward, and then not really that much side to side. But if you move it any further, it is going to pop out. Same thing with the legs. The legs are really loose also. Like it holds poses, but it's just not as tight as you would expect like a new figure to be. He also does have a... Okay, the thigh swivel is really tight, and it's not really easy to use it because every time you try to swivel it, he swivels on the hip, not at the thigh. So in order to move it, so mine was kind of stuck. I had to take it out in order to move it, and then it kind of works. It's still... the thigh swivel is stupid because there's not enough tension on the hip, so it doesn't really... It doesn't work. It's just stupid. Why did they do that? So double jointed knees looks awful. And then this part came off a few times already. So be careful you don't lose that part. Knees are also kind of loose. And it's not like floppy loose, but it's just like it's a brand new figure. It shouldn't be that loose. And then the ankles are pretty good. The same joint. You get a pretty good amount of range out of that. And he does have a toe articulation. It's good, but it could be so much better, especially for the price. Like, come on, this is dumb. This is worse than some Marvel Legends. And then the sword also comes apart so that you can put it into the hand. It's a little bit hard to stand him without the stand. That's one thing I forgot to mention. Both of these figures come with stands, but it's those crappy stands. And if you've seen my Play Arts Kai reviews, then you know that I don't like those stands. You can get kind of cool poses, but it just doesn't, like, work. So the stand does help, obviously. It's still hard to get him into dynamic poses, even with the stand. It doesn't look too bad. It's just kind of frustrating how it doesn't move, like, smoothly. It's just really finicky. But I guess now we'll get into the comparisons. Here they are next to Barrett. Barrett is probably still the better figure out of these three, just because he just feels worth the price. He's less difficult to pose. His left forearm does fall off pretty easily still, but he's still easier to handle than these other two figures. You can't really do much with the Aerith, and the Sephiroth is just kind of a mess. And then here's the old Kingdom Hearts Square Enix Sephiroth figure. And this is customized to be more like Sephiroth from Final Fantasy VII. So obviously a different look, different design. Kind of curious to see how a head swap would look. So that doesn't work. And this doesn't really work either. I guess if you were to elevate the head a little bit. But this older Sephiroth figure feels like better. It moves. It feels more solid than the new one, which is really crazy to think about. I don't know how old this figure is. Yeah, it just feels a lot better than the new one. Here they are next to Iron Man. Just a basic Marvel Legends figure. About the same size as Sephiroth. Here he is next to Ryu. So if you're a Smash Bros. Collector, you know, they're both in Smash Bros. Here's a WWE Mattel Ultimate Edition Hollywood Hogan. He's too big to fit in the frame. And he's a 7-inch scale figure, so he's obviously going to be bigger than both of these. Here they are next to SH Fig Arts Freerin. Here's Bandai Kazuya from Tekken. And the last comparison I want to make is with the Play Arts Kai Final Fantasy VII remake figures. Just kind of interesting to see both these different styles next to each other. And like I've said before, I like the remake designs. I just don't like the changes to the story. I would probably play the remakes if it was more faithful to the original games, but it isn't. And they changed stuff. They ruined some stuff to the newest release. Anyways, that's everything I have to say about these figures. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'll see you in the next one.